Station Officer in charge currently, I've introduced Station Officer Max Gray to do the welcome and the apologies. Station Officer Max.
Thank you, Jack. Well, gentlemen, tonight is a special occasion. I think each and every one of us are aware of the fact that we are changing the home of the Bendigo Fire Brigade from here to the new station, and we're basically bidding it farewell tonight. As far as the home, I'm sure the building will still be here for many, many years, but the Bendigo Fire Brigade won't be occupying it. Now, on behalf of the members, officers and members of the Bendigo Fire Brigade, we officially welcome you here tonight and hope you enjoy yourself. Now, already I've heard quite a few stories about fellows falling off fire trucks and fellows jumping channels and God only knows what. And I dare say as the night goes on there'll be quite a few more of those type of things that will emerge in the past. But I do heartily welcome you here tonight and hope you thoroughly enjoy yourself. There will be an official part of it tomorrow, the actual parade of transferring from here to the new station, and I dare say a lot of you will stay on for that tomorrow, and you'll sure be welcome. I know quite a few of you have travelled a long way, and I thank you for travelling that distance and coming back to bid farewell to the station. I have a few apologies here. I would like to read them out because some of you may be wondering as to whether these particular people are coming. Apologies are listed as Mel Jones, George Stevens, Stan Lane, Ken Still, Ian Randall, Wally Wright, Ronnie Bowen, Mick Smith, Rod Roberts, John Murder, Peter Chapman, Lindsay England, Lars Stanya, Phil Neander, Shane Cody, Ken O'Brien, Ern Wright, Kevin Stein, Darryl Walker, Laurie O'Brien, who was a late apology, he's on the sick list at the moment, not seriously, Jimmy Ray and Ronnie Thompson. And incidentally, Ronnie Thompson is back in hospital and he's in the higher block at the moment. Thank you, gentlemen.
normally in the evening, the official part of tonight's function is not very long, but at this point of time, it is with pleasure that I do a brief introduction to somebody I'm sure that's well known to you all. The introduction is probably worthless in so much as you all know him so very well, but tonight it is our pleasure to have a well-respected ex-retired volunteer member, Perth Tyrrell, who, as I said, I'm sure you all know, and his duty tonight is to render you a brief history of the Brigade in his 41 years that he was associated with us as a volunteer member. So would you please pay your attention to retired volunteer fireman Perth Tyrrell.
Well, gentlemen, right for a start, I think it'll take me about 10 minutes or a quarter of an hour.
Carry on, Perth.
Yeah, righto. So what I would suggest, if you care to, is take a seat. But if you don't, and you get sore muscles in your legs, well, it's your own fault. Well now, when I came into the Fire Brigade, that was 48 years ago now, it was pretty hard to get into. What we had to do was come up and you would then be taken into the Secretary's office where the Secretary, the Lieutenant and the Captain would run you through almost a Spanish Inquisition as regard to whether they thought you would be a fit person to become into the Brigade. So after a while, they called you in again and they said, yes, you can be an aspiring member for the Brigade. And from then on, you had to do all the work that was associated with the Brigade, like hoses and things, go to fires and all the rest of that sort of business. And if you were lucky, after about 4 months, you were classed as a reserve then. After about 4 months, you came in as a trainee. Well then, for a trainee, you got your uniform. And the uniforms that were issued to the different fellows were taken out of a rather moth-eaten cupboard up in the Secretary's room, and if you were lucky, you didn't get one that would fit. Mostly though, the fellows around did get one, but Stan Price, who came into the Brigade one day ahead of me and myself, we think somebody up there loved us, and we had to go to Ashman's and get a new uniform. Well, that was the start of our career.
How fit now, Percy?
I think that's a little bit there, but that doesn't matter. You get that with increasing age, you might get that later. Well, anyhow, chaps, once you got to a trainee and you got your uniform, there was only one step further that you could advance, and that was to become an auxiliary. But you were under strict supervision and strict discipline. I can remember one occasion when George came, but there were 4 station officers when I came into it. There was Jack Montgomery, Allhausen, George Comer and Joe Mertens. Well, I remember one night I was going down there to the theatre, and George Comer came out the door and said, come over here. So I went over because George was a chap, he's a bonzer bloke, but my word, when he said come over here and you were a junior boy, you came over here. And anyway, over I went, he said there's a fire out at Norris's store. It's a hay store. He said all the boys have gone out, you all got to go home, change, come back, go on theatre duty, and then when it's over, or while you're home, he says tell your mother you mightn't be home for a while because if they're not back here, you've got to stop here and work in the station with me. Well, that was a spirit, boys, that existed in those days. You were asked to do it and you did it. Well then, let's see, I've got a few notes here. Not too many, it won't take you long. Once you got in the brigade, what facilities did they have here so that you could fight the fires from which you originally came into it? Well, when I came into here, they had a little old motor truck in there that had a ladder going up the centre. And if you went round the bend and the drive was a little bit erratic, you got a thick ear, because the momentum as they went round and your head went back, it would hit the ladder. But fortunately for us, that went after a couple of years. Now, if you got a call, like out in the bushfires, or when I say the bush, when I speak of the bush, all those places outside the Kennington Reservoir, that was all bush. When you come back into the city, well, just over this side in Condon Street, that was cow paddocks. Well, then what we had to do was go on our bikes, and for to fight a grass fire out there, you had beaters. Now, the beaters were made up of old, broken down hoses, wired and riveted to a thing like a broom handle. And if you, like Stan and myself, lived out in Iron Bark and had to pedal out the Kennington Reservoir, by the time we got there, the blessed beaters would be taken, and what you'd have to do is break off a bush of Chinese shrub and dash around to the back of the truck and sat down on so-called padded seats. And without making any disrespect, Jimmy Evans, where is he, Jim? Jim and I were sent out because the others were gone, and we went up a Garden Gully Hill and we struck a bump. And I never had hold of what they called the big lid. And Jim was going to touch a back, you know, to get back to the by the time I bumped up, the truck was along and I darn near sat on the rail at the back, but I managed to grab it. Otherwise I would have been up at the loops up on the Garden Gully.
You wasn't trying that day.
Anyway, that's that. Now another study, you know. Now if we had a fire, you know, that required a little bit of height, well, the only ladder that we had here was an extension ladder that did reach much further than the girder across there. And we had that old horse-drawn ladder that was recently refurbished. And fortunately, we didn't have to use that, but we still had to do practice on it, take it out the back there. And there's only guy ropes from the top. You had to wind like blazes, you know, like that until it went up. And it was a case of like a lottery. Nobody wanted to go up the top, because once you got up there, there was only a ladder about that high, not a ladder, a handle, you know, something to hang on to. And by God, if it was windy, even though you had guy ropes, that little thing swayed like blazes. And although it only went up about 40 or 50 feet, I think there's a lot of them visualised that even though they had to drop 50 feet, there wouldn't be much of them left. But that was, by the by, that was one of the hazards. Anyway, that was eliminated when the old branch, which is gone now, of course, came into it, and that was quite okay. Now, where have I got? Oh, I've got the two somewhere. When we went to a fire, if there was any water used, well then we got it was all over, you know. Then the station officers, if there were not any officers at present, they were in charge and they'd tell you to roll up, and different fellows had different ideas of rolling hoses. Then when we got back, what we had to do, if it was a Saturday afternoon, not so much at night time, we'd have to throw the hoses in a trough out the back there and hose them down and give them a bit of a spud, and then put them on a wooden stick that was attached to a windlass that went up the old bell tower. We had to wind that up until they dried, and then bring them down and roll them up and put them back in the reel. Unfortunately, we didn't have that too much, but I cannot pay too much credit to the station officers that were here in that day. There you are, Jim, I can square myself with you by saying you were one of them. Yeah, there was Bob Houston, George Copeland, Joey Mertens, and Bertie Irving, after Mr Montgomery died. And then as the others went out, Jimmy came in, and we all had a pleasant time together. Now, while we're on that too, chaps, there were only 4 of them, and they looked after things very well. Now, over there where the boys are sitting, just there by where we got our name tags there used to be the ambulance along there, and it was part of the duty of the station officers to take that ambulance out. They could, of course, only go out, and then there was a few of us that we didn't actually run. We used to come in here for quite some time, and we used to go out with them. And sometimes it was, I won't say a gruesome thing, but it was far from pleasant. Because I was on one where a young lass in the prime of her life had been knocked down by a car, and she was dead on arrival at the hospital. And there was one lad, this is not so good. Unfortunately for him, every patient that he took in died. On one occasion, he had to go to his own place, pick up his own dad, and he died. And after that, he wouldn't go out again, and I don't blame him. But, as far as Dan and I were concerned, we used to go out quite a bit, and we had some happy occasions with some of them that could joke a bit in their disability, and other times, well, it got that way, chaps, and I'm not ashamed to say it. We had so much to do in relation to those things that the milk of human kindness sort of curdled in your breast, and you could go and take those things up, put them in the ambulance, and you could come back and start playing the cards that you were playing before you went out on. And speaking of cards too, we used to have our meetings the same as what you chaps do on the first Monday of the month. But after that, the captain would declare the meeting closed, and there'd be a rush for the table that he and the secretary had their gear on, and there'd be a 6-handed euchre going, and if one of you wanted to go down for a leak or anything like that, well, you'd find that your chair was taken when you come back, and there's an unwritten rule that if you left that chair, somebody else got in. And apart from that, the other blokes would go over and they'd play ping pool on the billiard table. I didn't understand that for a while, but after a while you got to it. And then there were carpet bowls and table tennis and all those sort of things. And where the fire was, by the way, in which the bell tolled when the chap rang. It was continuous ringing down into the city, and then the area down the back from Chapel Street was 1, and then over North Bendigo 2, out Iron Park was 3, and up the square area, that was 4. So if you wanted to know where the fire was, you listened to the tolling of the bell, and then you knew which way to look for smoke, because that was the greatest indication of where the fire was. And what you do, you'd hop on your bike and go like blazes and hope for the best. Now, speaking of smoke and looking out, some of you may not know that the old lookout tower down at the Camp Hill School, that was the lookout at the first place where the boys used to look for the fire. Now, it was around about that time, I think, that the war intervened, and of course then the demos and things like that was cut out. But speaking of demos, that brings to mind another thing. When we went to the demos, we didn't go like you chaps go now in the cars and things of that nature. What you did was you went up here, you had your cases with your gear, and the cases were put on the back of the wheels, taken up to the fire station, and you were formed up here and you marched from here up to the station itself and boarded a special train which came through from Swan Hill, and then away you went to the demo. Well, there are only 4 places. There was Ballarat, Waterville, Geelong and Bendigo. That was the way that you travelled then. But I think that I was talking to Alan Hartland tonight, and he went to his first demo in 1958. It was, Ali went there in 2 trains, so that was the way. Now, let us start cut short this. I won't bother about the notes, I'll just put it by and go from memory. That was the firefighting, but when you went into your interview, the officers asked how was your athletic prowess, because they wanted to keep up the reputation that the Bendigo had in relation to competing on the fire brigade track. Unfortunately, our reputation at that time was quite okay, but our main event, I think, and I think Alf Greaves will probably agree with me, this was the Y coupling. Now, Alf was one of the members, and I'd say he was about the only Bill Marchingo's in night too. He used to run ladder in that too, but I think the others have gone to the great beyond. But that's just by the by. But we also had the good straight 8 and the hose and ladder up. And then on the other side, we had the discipline. Now, in the older days, the discipline then was not like it is now. A couple of chappies up there at the back talking, I might as well just shut up soon because they're not interested. Anyway, the spanner drill in the old days was when you did the discipline, you had the spanner in the pouch on the belt. When you get the command of draw spanners, you have to pull it out and then put your hand up on the spanner and reverse spanner, let it come up there and you'd hold it. And then when you had to put it back, you grabbed it on the top and then shoved it back. Now, it is pure and simple, but the manner in which some would draw spanners and put them back, there was not much collusion in it. And then eventually that went by, and this is where old Tommy Brown used to take us in the discipline. But Tommy, all due respect to Captain Brown, he was not a discipline commander. And after a brief period, he handed it over to Bill Marchingo, who we have here on my left. Now, Bill, as a drum major in different bands, had an excellent idea of what was required in discipline. And he took us up on the upper reserve. And once again, the discipline then was different to what it is now. We had to be in line, getting the 3 lots of 4, about turn, move by incline, marching left and right, and then come into a wheel, back into 3s, and then finish up at a certain point. Well, now, I'm very pleased to say that from then on, the Bendigo record as a discipline team was such that other brigades would come and watch the Bendigo Brigade in action. And I see Don Walker there. Don will recall this, that he, at that particular time, was the commander of the Colac Brigade. And Don's Brigade Colac came second to Bendigo, but when we went up, Don wanted to let his hometown know, just the same as what I wanted to let our hometown know. But it was a compliment to Bendigo when Don came to me and he said then, he said, congratulations first on Bendigo winning, but I regard it as a compliment to Colac to come second to Bendigo. And that to me, I reckon it was a tribute to Bill for to turn the team out like that and have Don, who knows quite a lot of drill about like a lot of our Bill himself had come and pass that on to me as a representative of the brigade. Of course, there's possibly a bit of a disciplined fan myself, but one of the things which I like to recall is when we got the double at Ballarat, both in the discipline and in the torch fight. But there's not so much more that I can say, chaps. We used to have our, just as we have here tonight, we used to have our Christmas session, and after we had a jury march, things like that, we had our little sing-song. We had a trio there, the Dirty Irving and Dodge and Jones. I just can't recall the last bloke. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but they used to sing, and there's little Jackie Wilson. He used to have a little song, 2 songs of his own, and one of them still sticks in my mind, but I'm not going to sing it to you because I'm not a singer. But speaking of Jackie Wilson, we used to have the Easter fair up here on sometimes on the Upper Reserve, and sometimes down at the showgrounds. Well, now, the thing that's missing in the Easter fair now, and has been for a number of years, was the fire brigade events. And speaking of Al, as the hydrant man in the Y, is a very shrewd and astute man. I shall not call him cunning, because cunning is only something which doesn't reflect upon the man. He was shrewd and astute. And we'd been through running in pairs, and we got down to the last 6. And Al came to me, and he said, "This water's going to be fast." He said, "What I'm going to do is work this hydrant the same as I work it in the Y. I'll turn it full on, turn it half on, and give it to you again." We've all got the time up, and they reckon because there's only 2 more, Bendigo and another one coming, and they had the game turn up. Due to Alf's interpretation and proper feel of the hydrant, we got down, I just managed to get the branch on, and hit it. And that day when we got the magnificent sum of 7 and 6, but of course that was neither here nor there. The glory that came from it, from winning at Bendigo and beating fellows of Eagle Hawk, the likes of Norm Wilcock and Freddie Trewarn, I forget the other 2, but those 2 fellows were chaps of repute. Now anyway, I think that's about all, fellas. There are moments in our lives as we go through. Now there's, I've forgotten for the time, but anyway, I must go back. There's a man here tonight who, when the war intervened, he went into active service. He was decorated, and he did credit to the brigade, and his name will go down in the annals of Bendigo because he had a street named after him in company with a couple of other fellows who were brigade, and I refer to Bill Theodore, because Theodore Street is after one of the fellows named after him who's here tonight. And I think that's about all, but like I say, we have our own memories of things in the past. Now, there's Stan over there. I speak of Stan quite a bit, I suppose, because we were together quite a lot. We used to have badges on our uniform that if the different numbers, we started 31 and 32, Stan 31 and me 32. If they had a badge, we're still life members and they couldn't have taken it away from us. But if we had had those badges now, Stan would have been 1 and I would have been 2, and it would be something of which we would have been inordinately proud of. But as I was about to say before, there was keeping with Stan, the time when he was running down there at the showgrounds, he was a straight pole in the 8s. He got the jitters, and the same thing if you fellas get the jitters, don't let it worry you. Your knees might shake a bit, just go for a walk. The other bloke took Stan for a walk, and when he came back he was as good as gold, and they went on. They didn't win it, but they got third. And that was it. There's another bloke there, Bill Theodore. Bill was our flag opener in the 8s. And when the flag went away, like some of the boys had, wind on and run again. And Brocky from Long Gully won the ladder race, so that was pretty good too. But the point I'm getting at is it used to take a while, you know, to get out there with the old horse. And just above the needle loops, where the trams used to pass, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't even know where the needle line was, but just where Holdsworth Road comes into the main Eagle Hawk Road, just above that was the needle loops. They had just a small building, just big enough to house a reel with hoses on it and a hydrant. And all it was, they had the doors on it with a padlock. It was not a padlock, a padbolt. It was not locked, fellas, and there was no vandalism done then, like it is now, because if any bigger had vandalised that, in those days they built houses just with a wooden frame. Between those studs they stuck some hessian, and then they put some wallpaper on it. And with the days of candles and kerosene and all that sort of stuff, there was always a danger of fire. So those things were left
Really quickly. Thank you. Thank you. We're endeavouring to get through the official part of the evening fairly quickly, and thank you for bearing with us. We know we're all here to enjoy ourselves, but the organising committee have asked me to make it known to you that those who were worrying about the licence and the 05 bit, that we've made arrangements with the station officer, and if you're going to have trouble driving home, well, please come to the organising committee, and we've got somebody appointed to drive you home. We're able to make use of the authority bus, and because we don't want anybody getting pinched. It's my pleasure to introduce a chap that was mentioned in Percy's speech there, ex-captain of Colac, Don Walker, who is now returned to Bendigo and residing in the city. Don's own father, you might not know, but his own father was captain of the Temperance Brigade, and later on when the Brigades of Almada, he was the inaugural secretary of the combined Bendigo Fire Brigade. He's sure deeply involved in the history of the brigade also. And it's Don's pleasure tonight to pass on a presentation to Station Officer Max Gray, who will receive the presentation on behalf of us all. Thank you. It's Mr. Don Walker.
Gentlemen, you'll be pleased that I haven't got any notes, so you won't be here all that long. But speaking of history, I've already, after some research, written the history of the Bendigo Fire Brigade, the three brigades, not the suburban ones, and I'm hoping to be in the hands of the publishers shortly, and it'll cover all those things like the street depots and the tower and so on, but that's not what I got to talk about. I'm greatly pleased to receive the invitation unsolicited here tonight, because I hope I don't look any older than Perth. But having been born almost over the road here in one of those shops, and my father being an officer here, I was brought up here with Trenny and Solid Brown and those people, and I can remember horses turning out from here. And I ran over and watched Trenny get the steam up in that corner one day when the steam engine went out to its last call with Ruckle and Jeffrey's horses. I think it was the Woodstacks at the red, white and blue. But I hope I don't look all that old, but that's true. I can tell you a lot about it. However, I do want to mention one piece of history that might be news to you. Probably you've heard it discussed and you don't know the details of it. Now, this is it. By 1920, the board decided that in Ballarat, Bendigo and Geelong, the work being done was more than could be expected of volunteer firemen, pedalling all over the bloody place at all hours of the night and so on, and answering up to 47 malicious false calls a month. And they brought out a scheme where they reclassified the brigades in these three cities, including Bendigo, and in 1920 they declared them permanent fire brigades. They appointed 2 more station keepers. In addition to Trinny and Solid Brown, they appointed Jack Montgomery, the watchman from the tower, and Ulf Houston. So they had a permanent staff of 4, 2 Dodge motors, cut out watching in the tower, and here's the key point. They decided that 15 of the volunteers would be classed as auxiliaries, and they would get a retainer of about $10 a year, and from 10 to 20 cents according to the nature of the call per call. Big dough, wasn't it? Right. Now, the members, when they received this, it's a strange thing when you go back through the records. They spoke and said, now this presages the appointment of more permanent men, which is what Bendigo needs. It's a step in the right direction. And then, strangely enough, it got under their skin in some way, probably the blokes that didn't go auxiliary. They got their backs up about this, because they did an amazing thing, a shocking thing to us, looking back. I'm not criticising them, they were in the brigade then, we weren't. But they decided that the Bendigo Fire Brigade, as they knew it, was finished. And believe it or not, they put their piano, their decorative pictures off the wall, their carpets, everything up for sale. They sold the competition and training equipment to the auxiliaries. And here is the sad part of it. They decided to sell all the Bendigo Fire Brigade's trophies. What? That's true. Now, the following month, that was amended to read that they would be drawn for amongst the members. And every member that didn't get one would get a quid. That's $2 in lieu. And 25 trophies were disposed of on that occasion. Now, this to me is a very sad thing, except for one thing. One came to my family. Now, some of them are probably in tea chests or they've been chucked out or something, but I can promise you, gentlemen, that the one my father drew has always been greatly valued in my family. It's been kept polished and it's always been on display. It's a very proud relic that we received from the Bendigo Fire Brigade. And God knows that we'd have been wealthy people if my father hadn't devoted so much volunteer time to the Bendigo Fire Brigade, the secretary of the association, member of the board and everything else. But we did value that, and in our case it's been looked after, and I only wish you could recover them. Now, after considerable debate in the family, not all of which was perhaps favourable, but nevertheless, we have decided, well, there's only 2 of us left to tell you the truth, we have decided that to mark this further progress in the brigade, the moving to the new headquarters, that the trophy that came to us quite legally, right out the hat at the wish of the brigade, should be put back into the custody of the Bendigo Fire Brigade. And I hope that you'll be happy to assist this, to do this, but I'm a shrewd old Navy man. To prevent any funny business in the future, if that ever occurs, I would like it to be recorded in your minutes that it is on permanent loan from the family of the late ex-Captain James Walker. Now, I'll unveil this. It might have been the best of them, but it's one that's coming back to the brigade, which should never have left. Of these they gave away, not at least, but 25 trophies. So there you are, a permanent loan from the Walker family.
On behalf of the Brigade, I'm quite proud to receive this, and we will display it in our new trophy cabinet, and it will be in safe hands, I can assure you of that. When we talk of trophies, we have moved the bulk of the trophies down to the new station, and they are on display, and members that go down there tomorrow, I would like you to have a look at them. You'll be surprised to see how many trophies there are. We did spread them out a little bit to make it look better, but there are quite a number of trophies. So thank you very much, Don, on behalf of the Brigade. In regards to Don's memorabilia of the Brigade, I can assure you that when he finally gets it printed and gets it out, it should be a fairly comprehensive report on the Brigade from pre-Bendigo days, back in the Sandhurst days, right up to the present time. Because I, for one, know how much time Don has spent upstairs going through the old records. And some of our records do date back well before the turn of the century. So I think your book will be in demand when you finally get it out, Don. I hope you don't print 100 or so, you know, maybe a few thousand, because I'm quite sure they'll be in demand. Once again, Don, on behalf of the Brigade, thank you very much.
He caught me.
Closed down the old Fire Station. That in itself, I suppose, to some degree, is a sad occasion, but you can all realise, I'm sure, that we're all looking forward to getting to the new station with the comforts and facilities, and in fact, the amenities that will allow us to hopefully perform our job a little better. So we are looking forward to getting in the new station, but sadly enough that we're going to have to leave these old premises. But I'm sure the new station, good and all it is, we're going to be sadly missing two things. The first thing is that we can't watch the football over the back fence. I don't know how we can get on without that. And the second thing is...
Price is still up, they're going to get it for nothing.
But I'm sure that those of you, particularly of the staff, will be able to recall that the old New Street Hill has saved a lot of red faces in the past, where flat patches have been not the order of the day, but occasionally we've all been caught out. The old New Street Hill saved a lot of red faces in the past. And in fact, two fellows even pushed the old fence out here one day and got it started on the View Street Hill, so I don't know how we're going to cope without that. However, I hope you all to all of you here, in fact, to all of you who are here tonight, and also those, in fact, who for some... all those, in fact, who for whatever reason haven't been able to make it. So on their behalf, we would like to propose a toast and to the good health of all those who have served in this brigade, no matter what capacity. Either a volunteer, a staff fireman, an officer, a trainee or whatever else. Whoever has served in the old station, in whatever capacity, we wish them well and continued good health and in passing of the old View Street Station. And having said that, we're also very anxious to propose the toast I should say, to the continued health of those who will serve in the very near future and the distant future in the new fire station in Hargreaves St. And I wish you all please drink the health of the past, the present, and the many who will serve in the near future. Good health. Thank you.
This is a sad moment in some ways because we are about to close the station which has been home to the Bendigo Fire Brigade for 86 years. But fortunately the building will stand as a memento to our home so we don't lose complete connection with the building entirely. We have better things to look forward to, which in approximately half an hour we will see, and the brigade will go on from there. But I have the gentlemen who are about to close the doors come forward, please.
Get out soon.
Close the door.
Okay, John!
Okay, hey! One side of the place there. We will now take up our position to take the march down the street. Okay. Shots! Move! Right, two.
the fun. Going first, raising of the door.
Call on the Chief Officer to say a few words.
Events such as Brigade centenaries, moving to new stations, but I must admit that I have not seen one as moving as this done for Bendigo. I thank you all for your part in the ceremony. I agree with Station Officer Gray that we are moving from the old to the new. I'm sure we will be a stronger unit as a result. And in this regard, I ask you, and in fact challenge you, to ensure that that does happen for the future of this brigade and for the city of Bendigo. Thank you all very much for attending today's ceremony.
I would now like to invite, we'll be guided through the station. I hope you can have a look and enjoy what you see. Parade! Attention! Parade! Break off!
We'll go to the home drive. Cars around the corner.
Brigade has operated from the View Street station since 1898, but now the old building will close. To mark the changeover, the Brigade held a special procession through the city, and as Heather Anir reports, even poor weather didn't mar the occasion.
The Bendigo Fire Brigade probably couldn't have picked a better time for its changeover ceremony. The cold, wet weather kept the crowds away, but it also meant there was little chance of a fire call interrupting the procession. As the rain fell, brigade members, volunteers, tankers and trucks paraded down View Street and into Pall Mall, leaving behind their home of the past 86 years. Their destination was the new $1.5 million station in Hargreaves Street. From today, the new complex becomes the operational headquarters for Bendigo's Fire Brigade. It's a move which Station Officer Max Gray says gives the region one of the best fire stations outside Melbourne.
It's going to mean that we'll have a lot more room, particularly in the engine room area where our vehicles were a little bit confined getting out doorways. Now they'll be able to virtually come straight out without negotiating narrow doorways.
Is it going to improve the firefighting abilities of the brigade at all?
I don't really think so. We've always provided an excellent service, in my opinion, to the people of Bendigo, and we'll continue to do so.
Well, how does Bendigo compare to other regional centres then? A new building must make it one of the best.
Well, the only one that comes up near this is Ballarat, and that's only just recently been completed. It's very, very similar lines to this one.
So it's among the best in the regional Victoria?
Well, we claim it as the best.
100,000.
Brigade. Stand down. Hey. Brigade. Stand. Easy.
His Worship the Mayor, the City of Bendigo, Councillor Pearce, Mrs Pearce, the Honourable Mr Kennedy, Mr Reid, Mr Radford and Mr John and wives, Country Fire Authority Chairman, Mr Greenwood, Mrs Greenwood, members of the Authority and their wives, Chief Officer Orchard and Mrs Orchard, Manager of Finance and Administration, Mr Riddell, Mrs Riddell, President of the Victorian Urban Fire Brigades Association, Mr Thomason and his good lady, President of the Victorian Rural Fire Brigades Association, Mr Baines, his good lady, authority officers, fellow officers and firemen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bendigo Fire Brigade on this official occasion. We had to talk to the man upstairs and he turned on some fairly good weather for us. Not that it hasn't been for the last few weeks, as ones that came to the demo a fortnight ago witnessed that we can turn on fairly good weather here. Also, a welcome to Bendigo of the persons who have travelled from far and wide to Bendigo. Now, just a brief history on the involvement of fire brigades in Bendigo. Back in the early 1850s, when Bendigo was expanding into a reasonable sized town through the advent of gold being mined in the area, some serious fires resulted, which created a need for fire brigades to be established. There were probably means of firefighting prior to the establishment of brigades, but it was just a hock hat type thing. So in the early 50s and over the next few years, they created 3 fire brigades, they being Sandhurst No. 1, who had its original station where the law courts now stand, and then later on shifted into a car park just across from the School of Mines here. Sandhurst City, they occupied a station in the vicinity of where the SEC offices are now, and Sandhurst Temperance occupied the area next to the old View Street station. So those 3 brigades, along with other brigades in the area, occupied the city proper. As time went by and they became a little more efficient in some of their equipment, which at that stage was still hand-drawn, somewhere in the early 1890s there was a proposal put forward to amalgamate the 3 brigades into 1 brigade. And I can imagine at that time there was quite an upheaval, 3 brigades basically being disbanded and put into 1 brigade. However, the event did take place, and that occurred in 1898, and in 1899 saw the formation of the Bendigo Fire Brigade, and from that date forward the Bendigo Fire Brigade has taken the place of those other 3 brigades. The Bendigo Fire Brigade moved into the new station of the time in View Street. Now that station still stands today, and hopefully with preservation that station will still stand as a building anyway for many, many years to come. At the time that it was opened, it was rated as the most modern in Australia. And seeing that it's stood the test of time for 80 years and will probably go on for another 80 years, long beyond the time that we'll be able to remember it, they were probably right. In 1984, we occupied this present station in June, and I hope that it can serve the community of Bendigo as well as the old View Street station did. Once again, a welcome to everybody here tonight. I would like to hand over to ACO Graham.
Thank you, Station Officer Gray. I won't go through the long list, but I would like to say distinguished guests, firefighters and ladies and gentlemen. The building that is to be officially opened here tonight is something that is fairly new within the Country Fire Authority. For not only is it a very large and modern fire station, but it also provides the administrative and operational headquarters for the areas that surround Bendigo in Region 2, Region 19 and 21 and the Northern Zone headquarters. Prior to the occupation of this building, the regional and zone headquarters were spread over various parts. The Region 2 headquarters was behind a house and a small office in Raymond Avenue, Bendigo. The zone office was in a similar situation in Afton Street, Bendigo, and the Region 19 and 21 headquarters were at Castlemaine in a similar backyard office. Some 3 years ago, the three headquarters were brought together in leased premises in Bendigo, and we occupied a small, two small shops or offices, and that became the first combined zone region complex in this area. With the completion of the building, the Northern Zone complex and the Region 19, 21 and Region 2 headquarters all moved into this building as well. So, as I mentioned, it completes a new concept within the Country Fire Authority in that not only is it a fire station, it is the regional and operational headquarters also. I would now like to call on the Chairman of the Country Fire Authority, Mr. Ray Greenwood, to officially open this complex and fire station. Mr. Greenwood.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Officer Graham. And like Athol, I'll keep the salutations brief too, I think. Your Worship the Mayor, Councillor Joe Pearce, other municipal representatives, parliamentarians, Chief Officer Orchard, and distinguished guests. And among the distinguished guests, let me single out particularly the members of the Ladies Auxiliary, who in every brigade, and especially in Bendigo, have done so much to help the brigade, and I'm sure have done so much to furnish the complex that we're opening today. And I should say thank you for yet another opportunity to visit Bendigo. 3 times in just a little over a month, 4 times in something like 2 months. If I come any more often, I think Joe Pearce will be asking me to vote for him. He's already suggested that we should be paying rates on the building, and I'm not too sure that I'm going to agree to that. And could I also congratulate the officers who are responsible for the parade arrangements. This is another of the many firsts for me in the Country Fire Authority, and I'm impressed, gentlemen, with the way in which the parade has been carried out this evening. I think it reflects great credit on all of you and on the gentlemen who have trained you. And everybody here would recognise that the root of it all really is the pride you have in your new building and the pride you have in the Brigade and in the Country Fire Authority. And I thank you for the honour that you've paid me and our other guests by performing the parade and the official part so very well. Assistant Chief Officer Graham has referred to some of the history, and Station Officer Gray as well, the history of the complex that we're opening tonight and the earlier fire station. I understand that the plans did not develop without some considerable controversy. However, be that as it may, I think that all concerned should be gratified with the result and be very well pleased of the state, and that's a most significant responsibility. But for those of you that haven't viewed the facilities, I'm sure you'll agree with us that when you do inspect them, you'll find that they are very modern, very adequate, and as far as the Country Fire Authority goes, a new step forward in the type of operations and the facilities we wish to provide our men. It also reflects an attitude that has been developing within the authority, and that is to present very good shop front facilities where we can be seen to be a modern and progressive organisation. and that also later this evening I know a number of us will have the opportunity of using the excellent facilities that have been provided for the volunteers. The Bendigo Brigades had their origins, as has been noted earlier, in 1854 with the Sandhurst Brigades, and they are still playing a very important role in this municipality. It is a very large metropolis. In the terms of a fire risk, it contains a wide range of buildings, not the least of that, many of them are very old buildings which present a peculiar risk of their own, and there is a high fire risk. The community deserves the best in fire protection, and as Chairman of the Country Fire Authority, I'm pleased to say we have given you the best. The complex does another thing to me as well. It certainly epitomises that wonderful blend that we're privileged to have in the authority, the blend of field staff with our station staff and with our volunteer firefighters. The volunteers of Victoria are freely recognised and acknowledged throughout Australia as being the best trained and the most experienced volunteer firefighters in Australia and possibly in the world. And I think that comes particularly because our volunteers are able to mingle with and get the experience of the excellent training and the excellent men that form our field staff, our field officers and our station officers as well. And by working with them and sharing the facilities and using the same sort of training and watching the professionals at work, I'm sure that's one of the reasons why our volunteers perform so well and are held in such high regard throughout the state. And I might mention to those of you that aren't aware of it, that this week Don MacArthur, my Deputy Chairman, has accepted the role of Director of the Country Fire Services of South Australia, our sister organisation in South Australia. Now that's a great personal compliment to Don, a great career step forward, but it also reflects great credit on the authority and the way in which we are regarded by other states. And I was pleased also that ACO Graham mentioned that the past is not to be forgotten. The old fire station, we hope, will have a new role. It's been put to me that the role might be the same, but just the actors might change. It'll be serving the community in a new way, and one in which we hope will reflect some of the dignity and some of the community activities and the community responsibility that it had when it was serving as a fire station. It's not our business to support culture. We're not inclined to be arty types, but we get so much back from the community that if there's the opportunity for us to put something back in some way, we won't be found wanting, and I hope that a useful role is found for the old fire station. It now gives me great pleasure to declare open this Northern Zone Complex and the Bendigo Fire Station.
On parade, we have a couple of important functions to carry out, and the first one is the presentation of some long service awards. And I'd like to call on the following members of the Bendigo Fire Brigade to come forward. Fireman Brian Sanderland, Fireman Carruthers, and Secretary Rodder. And I'd like to now call on the Chief Officer to make the presentation of Brigade Long Service Awards to these members. Sorry, sir, and Foreman John Turner, who has just returned to the parade. Brian Sanderland. Second is a 20-year bar to his Long Service Award for Foreman John Turner. And two 25-year bars, their Long Service Award, first to Fireman Edward Carruthers, and to Secretary Les Rodder. Thank you, Chief. handing of national medals to 4 members of the Bendigo staff. And I'd like to now call forward Senior Firefighter John Absalom, Station Officer Robert Ellis, Station Officer Keith Pinner, and Senior Firefighter John Wellard. And to make the presentation of the national medals, I'd like to again call on the Chairman of the Country Fire Authority, Mr. Ray Greenwood. Sir?
Thank you, ACO Graham. I'd just like to make the point in presenting national medals that they are in fact awards of the nation. Many of our officers and many of the gentlemen associated with the Country Fire Authority receive recognition by their own brigades at the municipal level and from their community in all sorts of ways, and justifiably so. But the national medal stands out as an award from the nation. It's awarded by the Governor-General on the recommendation of the Chief Officer of the Australian Fire Service. So, although it may have been won at the community level for service to the fire brigades, nevertheless it is a recognition of that service by our nation, and it stands out as a singular and important award for that reason.
Thank you, sir. The National Medal was instituted by letters patent granted by Her Majesty Elizabeth II, Queen of Australia, on the 14th of February 1975. Its purpose is to enable Her Majesty to honour those who have served in the Defence Forces, the Australian Police Forces, the Australian Fire Services or the Australian Ambulance Services. The decoration consists of a circular bronze medal with the full Australian coat of arms contained within a rim carrying the inscription, the National Medal for Service. It is suspended by a crown with a plain bar attached to a ribbon of 15 alternating gold and blue stripes, symbolising 15 years of service. This award by Her Majesty to fire service members is for diligent service for a period of 15 years. The first recipient tonight is Senior Firefighter John Absalom. Senior Firefighter Absalom joined the ranks as a volunteer fireman with Bendigo Brigade on the 24th of the 9th, 1962. Was appointed a permanent staff firefighter at Bendigo in 1968, promoted to the rank of Senior Firefighter in 1977, and presently serves as a Senior Firefighter attached to C Platoon at Bendigo. Senior Firefighter John Absalom. Second recipient, Station Officer Robert Ellis. Joined the ranks of the volunteer with Bendigo in 1961. Appointed to the Special Service Department in 1964. Was appointed as a permanent fireman at Bendigo in 1965. Promoted and transferred to Geelong City Brigade, relieving Station Officer in 72. Transferred back to Bendigo in 1974 and presently serving as a Senior Station Officer attached to A Platoon at Bendigo. Station Officer Robert Ellis. Station Officer Keith Pinner joined the ranks of the volunteer with the Shepparton Brigade in 1961. Appointed as a staff firefighter at Bendigo in 1967. Transferred as a relieving station officer in 1976 to Ballarat City. Returned to Bendigo and appointed station officer in 1978. And presently serving as a senior station officer attached to C Platoon. Station Officer Keith Pinner. Senior Firefighter John Wellard joined the ranks of the volunteer with the Ararat Fire Brigade in 1957. First appointed as a staff firefighter at Bendigo in 1962. Promoted to the rank of Senior Firefighter at Bendigo in 1967. Presently serving as a Senior Firefighter on D Platoon at Bendigo. Senior Firefighter John Wellard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we would also like you to take the opportunity to have a look through the new fire station and zone complex and look at the facilities that have been provided here in Bendigo. Thank you very much. Station Officer Gray.
distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow firefighters. It's my great honour to propose this toast at the CFA tonight. The CFA in Bendigo have got a very good history, starting off in View Street and now transferring here to Chapel Street, this beautiful building that we've got. We've got a lot to be thankful for. The people of Bendigo also should be very, very proud of the CFA in Bendigo. I pledge to the CFA the Brigade's loyalty, and I'm sure that you will honour that pledge with a toast to the CFA. To the CFA. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul and John. And to respond to that toast, I again call on the Chairman of the Country Fire Authority. We're really getting our money's worth out of you tonight, aren't we? 3 times in one night, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I was 6 foot tall when I first joined the Country Fire Authority. Thank you, Paul and Turner, for the way in which you've proposed that toast, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the way in which you responded to it. It's a great feeling of pride that I have when I hear of toasts such as this, and now I hear of the accolades that are given to the Country Fire Authority. And of course it's with a great sense of humbleness that I receive them, because I can really claim that none of those tributes are due to myself personally, but to the organisation and the fine body of people that I represent. And that includes the field staff, the permanent officers, the station officers, and of course those volunteers, the wonderful group of people that I've said so many times who are one and the same time our masters and our servants, because without them there would be nothing, and we also provide, we hope, the leadership that they need as well. Coming to Bendigo is always a privilege, particularly to visit such an old brigade such as this. It's a privilege for another reason. I have associations with Bendigo, and that comes because of when I was in the Latrobe Valley and tied in with country football. Bendigo, of course, has always been one of the powers in the country football. And at the risk of boring some people have heard this story before, I'm reminded that while I was in the Latrobe Valley and on the Latrobe Valley Tribunal, we had a Bendigo player before us, and he was up on a charge of striking. The witness was a young man who was obviously being hit. There was no doubt about the fact that he'd been struck. He had a black eye and a broken nose, and his lip was split. And we called him forward and we said, well, what happened? And he said, oh, well, he hit me. And we said, all right, well, who was it? And he looked around and I said, can you identify him? And he said, yep. And I said, can you tell me who he was? And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I said, can you describe him? And he said, I can, but I'm not going to. And I said, why not? And he said, because that's what I was doing when he hit me. So once bitten, twice shy, I guess is the rule in football. It might also be the rule in the fire brigades. Certainly, I enjoy coming back to the Bendigo Fire Brigade. The reception and hospitality is always strong and true, and I'm quite confident, Paul and Turner, that the loyalty is there as well, and I thank you very much for that, and I thank you all for the way in which you honour the toast to the authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an apology, and I forgot to read the apologies. And could I just mention the apologies for this evening, and they are Deputy Chief Officer and Mrs. Potter, and Deputy Chief Officer and Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Peter Eldred, Fireman Jacobs and Mrs. Jacobs, Mr. Tom Pink and Mrs. Mary Dillon. And I had a telegram from Mrs. Mary Dillon, Mr. Les Rodder, Secretary Bendigo Urban Fire Brigade, to the Chairman, Country Fire Authority, congratulations to the Bendigo Urban Fire Brigade and Ladies Auxiliary upon the opening of our beautiful fire station. Regret unable to attend, an apology to all. Mary Dillon, President of Bendigo Fire Brigade, Ladies Auxiliary. And I think all of those that know Mary will appreciate that. She's been a great stalwart to this brigade and with no direct connection. A wonderful person. Other members, other apologies from the Honourable Ken and Mrs. Wright, Senior Firefighter Munro, Superintendent Knowles, Mr. and Mrs. Bracey, Mr. and Mrs. Nadoid, Mr. and Mrs. George Ellett, who are overseas, the Engineer of Bendigo City, and Mr. and Mrs. Campbell, Mr. and Mrs. Gore, Mr. and Mrs. Les Dickens, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph from 3BO, Mr. and Mrs. Ellis, Senior Firefighter Harrington, Andrea Connolly, Senior Firefighter George Ellis, Regional Officer and Mrs Ellis, Mr and Mrs Glazebrook, Mr and Mrs McDonald from the Bendigo Advertiser, Mr and Mrs P. O'Connell from the Bendigo Trust, the Town Clerk and Mrs Burton, and the Manager of the SEC and Mrs Hable. They were the apologies. We have a further toast, and we'll continue with the formalities while we in this situation. And the next toast is a toast to the Bendigo Fire Brigade, and I'd like to call on Superintendent of the the Bendigo Ambulance, Mr Jack Rowe, who is, he'll probably tell you, a long time or a long way member of the Bendigo volunteers and the permanent staff here at Bendigo. So I'd now like to call on Mr Jack Rowe to propose a toast to the Bendigo Fire Brigade. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I know you're going to die when I dip into my pocket and pull out a piece of paper and say, hey, all right, the people with the hearing device probably take the appropriate action. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry about my back presenting to you, but it's as equally charming as the front. I'll face the front. Before I actually come to the real point of my being here, firstly let me say I'm very honoured to be given this task, because I know there are very many people who I could name, and no doubt you all could, who've had illustrious careers with the Bendigo Fire Brigade, both in permanent areas and voluntary areas. And so it's a great privilege, and I'm very humble about the fact that I'm here. But yes, I have an association as a voluntary fireman and a permanent fireman. We used to run the ambulance service in a voluntary capacity when I was in the permanent brigade, and I guess that's probably the introduction of my career as a permanent ambulance officer for the last 33 years. But I'd like to take you back for a moment to perhaps how I became a member of the brigade, and picture, if you will, for a moment, Wispy, you know, being pole dementia youth of about in his late teens, being taken down to a training track one night and thrust into a team and said, "You'll be the pole," and already aware that he was 10 yards slower than the fellows behind who were doing the pushing of the ground. And you know, it's a pretty precarious position. And so if you can imagine the next few seconds, that wild-eyed and terrified, hanging onto that pole and feet touching the ground only 10 yards, every 10 yards or so. That probably was my illustrious career as a competitive fireman, and no doubt it didn't create any great headaches for the selection team at all. So I got to carry the first aid kit. And then I've still got him around somewhere. And that was the introduction of my present career as a professional ambulance officer. But to the more serious side of things, I've already said it's a privilege and an honour to propose a toast to the Bendigo Fire Brigade. And in so doing, I've qualified that the brigade, the Bendigo Brigade, represents an image, I suppose, to the general public of you know, towering snorkel equipment, gleaming fire engines, and people immaculately dressed in walkout uniform and so forth. That's probably the public image we all see of the fire brigade. And of course, the other side of the picture is that first picture, of course, is a picture of modern technology and efficiency and discipline. The other point that I wish to go is to probe beyond all of those things to the man or the individual behind the uniform. And the individual behind that uniform proudly wears the uniform, but he's the heart and soul really of the fire brigade. He doesn't really matter whether the uniform that he wears at a particular time be a dress uniform for parade or discipline purposes, or whether he's clad in a boiler suit and a helmet, battling his heart out on the front of a raging fire, whether it be bush or wherever. He and the many thousands like him, whether they be professional officers or volunteers, they're a unique breed of people, I think we can all agree. they're prepared to put themselves at risk at any time of the day or night. It doesn't really matter what time, day or night, any time, it doesn't matter what the conditions. Those people are prepared to put themselves totally at risk. And I don't mean an uncalculated risk. They know the risks before they go, but they're prepared in spite of that, to give themselves first to the whole community. I think that's a trend in this day and age. It's a very admirable one, and I think that Australia is a lot better off for those type of people. I'm probably generalising beyond the Bendigo fireman, but he represents the very person that I'm talking about. Mr. Chairman, I say that these individuals are unique, and they're the very heart and soul of this Bendigo Fire Brigade. I suppose I should have declared that I wasn't one of the original members in 1855. In fact, I'm really only 37, but I've had a pretty good life. I'm sure you'll include not only the people in your toast that I will ask you to join with in honouring, not only the Bendigo Fire Brigade, but they are representative of the many thousands of people like them around Victoria. And I'm sure to the gentleman in charge of the whole operation, they have an incredible group of people, numbering something like 100,000 plus all around Victoria. The Bendigo people are a part of that organisation. Bendigo people are quite a good cross-sample of that whole organisation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in drinking a toast to these people, and to those that have gone before in the Bendigo Fire Brigade, and to those who are currently serving it with distinction. Ladies and gentlemen, Bendigo Fire Brigade. Bendigo Fire Brigade. Thank you for honouring me at City Meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for that very kind toast. And to respond to that toast, I'll now call on the officer in charge of the Bendigo Fire Brigade, Station Officer Max Gray.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, if Jack's only 35, I'm only 21. I thank you, Jack, in the way in which you proposed that toast. I know it came from the heart. You being a member of this brigade, and also the close liaison we do have with the annual service. When we're on parade up the front, I mentioned about the history of the brigade, and some of the history we've preserved here in this very room. Over on my right is a trophy cabinet, and it is the trophies that were won by the Sandhurst City Fire Brigade, and to the credit of the brigade, they are preserved, as you can see them there today. Most of the trophies in that cabinet are over 100 years old. Out in the foyer there we have a photo of the Horace Lancel, which was a 1914 comma hose carriage. We believe one of the first in Victoria, then before the Melbourne Metropolitan Brigade got motorised vehicles. In the cabinet in the foyer there are also some odds and ends, such as smoke helmets and things of the past, which were preserved. In the trophy cabinet directly behind me are quite a number of trophies that were won by the late Jack Trengrove, who was a champion ladderman in this brigade back in the early 20s, later to become a station keeper, later to become a mechanic with the authority. I think he might have been the first mechanic. So you can see that we have preserved a great deal of the history of this brigade. Again, over on my right is a current photo of the brigade as its membership stood when we transferred from the old to the new. I'm proud to say that we've been able to put that up on the wall as a reminder of the staff and the volunteers of the brigade at the time of the changeover. Once again, thank you very, very much for coming along. It's been a great representation of all concerned. On behalf of the brigade, I sincerely thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Max. And now we've probably come to what, to the brigade and the staff here tonight, probably the most important toast of the evening, and that is a toast to our guests. And to do that honour, I call on Station Officer Jack Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr.
guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow firemen, it is a pleasure for me tonight to be asked to propose a toast to our distinguished guests and visitors. In fact, it's a very proud moment for me also. I guess, as Station Officer Gray had said earlier, if we were able to hearken to our forebearers, those who hang in the stairwell below us or on the walls, I dare say that it would be a very proud moment for those brigade members back in September in 1898 when the View Street Station was opened. So I'm sure we're all very proud as well as pleased to be part of this function. Very often a proud moment can be lost and become very insignificant if we don't have guests and visitors and folk around us to share those proud moments. And we're very pleased to see in our midst here tonight the distinguished guests that we have from various walks of life, who in fact in some degree have taken an active part in providing the station here, and also other very important guests and visitors who help us function in everyday life. Our other emergency services, our backup support from your municipalities and other people that help us function. So indeed it would be a very flat evening for us if we weren't able to share it with distinguished guests and visitors. And I'm sure everybody in the brigade is very proud and pleased that you're all able to join us here. And I would ask, therefore, every member of the brigade, our zone people as well, and our ladies committee, and the total membership of the brigade, to drink the health of our distinguished guests and visitors. Thank you. To the health of our distinguished guests and visitors.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. And to respond to that very able toast, I now call on the Mayor of the City of Bendigo, Councillor Joe Pearce.
I just said to Ethel, you didn't tell me about this one. I thought I had a free night tonight. Jack, to you, on behalf of all your distinguished guests and visitors tonight, may I say a sincere thank you for the sentiments expressed. Over the years I've got to know Jack, and I think he's typical of the men who are involved with the fire authorities and the fire brigades. Not only do they perform this particular service within the community, but they're also involved in many other avenues of community service. I've seen Jack come on through particular areas there. I know he had some terrific times over in the United States, particularly one I think was at the aerodrome in California. We won't talk about that one, will we, Jack? But nevertheless, if you want to hear about it, his wife won't tell you, but Jack will. But I sincerely say, on behalf of everybody here tonight, thank you for the opportunity for coming along. You have a magnificent building here in the city of Bendigo, something that you deserve, something that you can give to the community of Bendigo and the region, and a particular service, a service that is essential. It is a service that we hope never has to be called upon. But the reality of this situation is that frequently we do need that service. We appreciate the way in which you approach the matter, and we are very, very pleased to know that you now have the necessary facilities to carry out your functions to the highest degree. Congratulations to you all, and I know that you will use this particular building well, and thank you for your invitation tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our formalities tonight. It's probably just as well because my glass is nearly empty. I should just make one explanation. When Jack Clark said our forebears were hung in the stairs, he meant their photos were hung in the stairs. There's no need to worry about it. You're quite welcome to stop for quite a while yet. Ladies and gentlemen, sweets are now being served. We ask that you take the sweets and a cup of tea or coffee, whatever you want.